Good afternoon, Sharks fans. This is Pregaming with Pucknology, the self titled world's second best pregame show on the air with you as we prepare for game two of the Stanley Cup final between the Sharks and Penguins. I am Eric Cura, otherwise known as Puck Guy 14, joined by the other guy who spells his name the right way, Eric Landy.
Yeah, we've got to find a better intro for me versus the guy who spells his name right.
Oh, it's either that or the guy who's got the boatload of laundry behind him at
Well,
the
hey,
moment.
the laundry's ready to go.
That's right. That's what we're talking about. We're not superstitious at all. We swear. All right. We'll roll like the usual technology show. If you want to be a part of it, use the hashtag technology after dark. You can at us on Twitter, at PuckGuy14 or at Eric Landy. We'll keep an eye on the live chat as we roll along. We will go up till about 4:30. I believe that's when CSN's coverage will kick in. So we will get going that way. Um,
Slush already had it. He wants on.
Slushy, simmer down, dude. We haven't even gotten through the intro. Nonetheless, all right. It's been a crazy day. I will say that for sure. Personally, got DMs, phone calls, texts at 6:30, mostly coming from the Toronto region, as we set up for the show along with our interview with Jeff Merrick and I'm hearing from friends in Toronto who might actually try to fly out for Game Three. So it's been a crazy morning. Helped out technical support and getting the lucky fajitas that I didn't have for Game One. So it's been a crazy one so far. Landy, how you doing as we get ready for Game Two?
I've been doing all right. Just had the normal kind of school day, and then uh, yeah, I don't know, just kind of getting back into the Sharks kind of mojo. I needed to take a little bit of time yesterday to kind of get everything cleared up. I was kind of distraught after game one.
Mm-hmm.
That opening period really, I think it shell shocked everybody, and including myself. But that second period in the game was pretty good. You like to see the Sharks come back and tie it up. Um, and then, that third period, it was just a little unfortunate. That one bad break with the stick, and it ends up in the back of the net. And at this high a level, when you're playing for the Stanley Cup, I mean, you make any kind of errors like that, and it's normally in the back of your net. So
I was going to say the two of those goals last game. You talked about that one, the game winner by Benino, um, just going, just on just a bad break and defensive breakdown. Same thing with Braun. I think on Shiri's goal, Crosby pulled up and Braun wiped out and set up Shiri with the to receive the pass for the goal. Uh, Tough way to go. Nonetheless, they did look nervous early on and just literally got owned in that first period. But they came back, and that's the important part. They came back. They had some resolve. They played, I thought, fairly well in the third period, even though they were getting outshot badly. Um, and darn it, if that darn power play could have gotten going in the last 2 minutes of that game, I think we would have been okay. Definitely for overtime. Uh,
yeah, Jay Clark brings up a great point in the chat. Poor Braun that day, a loss in the family. It's his father-in-law who played in the NHL. Um, I forget which teams he was. Was he on Atlanta?
he was with the Atlanta Flames and
Right,
the Chicago Blackhawks,
and
I
the
believe.
Hawks. Yeah, yeah. So condolences from us to the Braun family, and we have another another someone in our hearts tonight.
Yep.
Laurel, as you guys all know from the chat and from Twitter, is going through some family there's some family medical things that are happening in and around her, so we kind of give our hearts to her as well, and have our thoughts and prayers with her as she's kind of dealing with this, and the health of her mother and father. As everybody has seen, is it's touch and go. So we're just keeping her in our thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's tough timing with everything going on for us, but kind of puts in perspective as to uh, what really matters, and that's your family and friends. So we're all our best to you. Hang in there, my dear, and hopefully the Sharks can put a smile on your face for at least 3 hours tonight.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, I mean, no. Once we've, I think, try and lighten the mood a little bit. Let's kind of go into
I
some of the
hope
running.
so.
Yeah, go into some of the running storylines going into game two. Um, I don't know if you've kept up on the Twitter and on, any of the Sportsnet apps or anything like that, but looks like Nieto is going in for Zubris tonight.
Yeah, it looks like he's set to go, and just like a quick little swap. He's usually played on the third line, but I think he's just going in for Zubris, and he'll be on the wing with Smalling and Wingles.
Yes, yes, Spalling and Wingles, which actually forms quite kind of a quick little line there.
Mhm.
Tommy's got some wheels, and so does and so does Spalling. So you get a nice little fourth line going with some speed there, and I think that definitely helps out. That bottom six looked like it looked a little slow. I'd have to say that the Penguins kind of brought it to them in that bottom six matchup, and we had talked a little bit about that where I thought that the battle lines would be drawn in the bottom six and in the against the defense. And sure enough, it was Nick Bonino who scored the goal. And whether you call him a top nine forward or bottom six forward, it's kind of a wash. But going into tonight, the Sharks now readjust. Zubris, I mean, I guess you like the veteran presence that comes with him,
Right.
but at the cost of foot speed. And St. Louis, Nashville to a lesser extent, and definitely LA, you could all get away with having a Dinah Zubris in the lineup.
Mhm.
Um, but in certain stretches in that Nashville series, it looked like the Colin Wilson line really gave Zubris kind of a hard time. So I think it's natural that Nieto comes back into this game, and that he kind of takes a breather here, and we'll see if he draws back in. Peter DeBoer is a major believer in don't fix what's working, or don't fix what is working. So if the Sharks reel off 3 wins, I don't think we see him again. But if it's kind of back and forth, lopsided, I think you're going to need all hands on deck here, and he may draw in again. So we'll see. But I do like this kind of subtle adjustment, and we'll see if they keep the line combos the same. I mean, I know there had been a little bit of talk, and I had contacted Mark Purdy of the Merc and asked him, hey, any discussion about moving Marlowe back to center, and going with the four-headed monster down the middle? And he's like, no, not from what I've heard. He said Chris Tierney's line did look a little overmatched against Malkin, but you also got to remember that they scored goals when Thornton was on the line, was when Thornton was on the ice, and when Couture was on the ice. So he said
Right.
it wasn't just one line's problem, but it was kind of a whole. Everybody looked slow. So I think until we actually get to see them really play best on best, I don't think we see major line adjustments. But if Pittsburgh comes out firing again tonight, I wouldn't put it past me to put or just to have Peter DeBoer realign those lines on the fly.
Yeah, and since they already know where they've been working with each other, I think it's going to be just totally uh, doable to change them on the fly and throw Pittsburgh's matchups off a little bit, which is good. Which would most likely would mean Patrick Marlowe back to center on the third line, and we'll segue into that with Marlowe uh, not suspended, not fined for the hit in game one, where he received a penalty for a check to the head of Brian Rust. As of right now, we're still saying Rust is a game time decision. Uh, Still looking like it that way. No updates so far from Pittsburgh yet, but I would think he's playing tonight. But a lot of people on social media, in the media and press, have been going after Marlowe about how much of a dirty player he is, and I said it on Twitter, and I'll throw it to you, Landy, after this. Um, but to call Patrick Marlowe a dirty player is so strange, and especially from Pittsburgh fans who who
Know a
had the
thing or
likes
two
of
about, yeah, know a
with
thing or two
Matt
about dirty
Cook
players.
and actually went out of the way of the things. But Marlowe was a former Lady Bingwinger, Lady Bing nominee uh, twice over in '07 and I believe in 2013. So obviously he isn't that much of a bad person. I mean, yes, we all have the occasional mix-ups, and it was a hit that should have been penalized. But I know, Landy, you've talked to a few people, and I'll preface this by saying just try to keep it even keel when you're talking about this. But the floor is yours, Landy. I'll let you have your say.
I mean, okay. So I talked a little bit with Colin Dunlop from Pittsburgh. His station is 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh. So you know that it's, I'm going right into the Penguins' heart if you want to talk a little bit about that. And of course Rob Rossi is also a guy who really loves to slant things in the Penguins end. It's just everybody loving the Penguins over there and just seeing everything through black and gold sunglasses. So I'm just going to preface that. But I came across this article that Colin wrote. And here's just a little snippets. He's saying, do you think that this was a message sending hit? That is to say, do you think Marlowe, by the extension, the rest of the Sharks were already tired of and it was already obvious after the better part of game one that Pittsburgh was the much faster team. The best way to start countering that was maybe to start picking some people off, especially picking off the guys who could really skate, especially picking off the guy who they had trouble catching, or more so, especially laying a shot to a guy who was probably the faster skater on the ice for either team, Brian Rust. And on top of that, not just a faster skater, but a guy in Rust who has produced goals at a frightening rate over the last few games. That's where I'm at in all of this after I think about it and a bit and watch the replay of Marlowe hit a few times. Just my opinion. It's just an opinion, but I feel like he knew exactly what he was doing. It had been tough for the Sharks to catch the Penguins, especially Rust, all night game one. So instead of chasing them anymore, someone was going to take the first chance they had to knock the hell out of one of them. Marlowe got that chance and took it. Um, First off, I don't know if you're throwing the whole second period out the window, but if you look at that game, the Sharks were caught flat-footed in the first period, no doubt. Second period, the Sharks took it to the Penguins. I mean, the Penguins
Oh, big time.
had no response to the Sharks' forecheck, to the Sharks' speed. So saying that the Sharks were chasing the game the whole way is just asinine. I mean, it's coming from a person who doesn't understand the flow of the game, in my opinion, because you just look at this and you go, okay, well, were you watching the second period? Now, in the third period, I think it went back to the Penguins. I think it shifted back. I think the Penguins were definitely dictating play.
Hmm.
Um, but I started to get into a little bit of a conversation with Colin over Twitter, and I said, well, you're not basing any of this intent to injure or message sending on the player's history, on Patrick Marleau's history. I said, how can you establish motive without taking into consideration history? You look at the two-time Lady Bing finalist. You look at the type of player that Marlowe has been throughout his entire career. The kind of hits that Marlowe does. I mean, Marlowe is not known for his hitting. He does finish his checks on occasion. But again, he never puts a player in a harmful position ever. And I had kind of all submitted this, and then you had another Pittsburgh fan come out of the weeds and say, "Well, oh, look at this hit on I believe it was a St. Louis player in 2012." Well, it was a boarding hit, and Jordan Stahl, had done the same kind of hit, and he's already establishing, oh well, Marlowe's a goon, and and so then by extension, I said, well, okay, if you think Marlowe is a
There's a
goon, do you think
goon,
Jordan Stahl is a goon?
right?
And do you think the types of hits that Jordan Stahl makes are goonish? And of course, it was like, oh well, he made the hit that time. He was a goon for that game, and it was just like, look, you have things so skewed in your minds that you're not even looking at all of the body of work. You're not looking at the hit itself, because the hit itself clearly shows that Marlowe hits his shoulder first, and then his head hits his back. Doesn't even go shoulder to head. It's his back, Marlowe's back, that it's hitting Rust head. So, I mean, I don't understand where this sense of entitlement and this sense of we're better than you comes from Pittsburgh, but I think it has a little to do with Mario Lemieux. I think it has a little bit to do with Pittsburgh being gifted Sidney Crosby as a gift to Mario Lemieux, and we won't get into the draft day topics, uh, but it's recorded ad nauseum about how lucky Pittsburgh happened to be in that particular draft. So we'll leave it there. So I just don't get where they come off saying these kinds of deal. I mean, Marlowe has never had. He's never. I mean, he's never had a dirty hit in his
No,
career besides a board from 2012, which every player has made. Um,
I mean, he hasn't really had much of a injury history at all, or to intend to injure industry. I mean, it's a running. It's almost a little bit of a joke out here. How I forget who said it. One of my Twitter followers, I think it was Lavina, said, she accidentally messed up his hot chocolate at the rink one day, and he apologized. I mean, and so it goes to without saying what Marlowe is like, and that's not in his system. And the other thing too is he plays that game where he tries to be gentlemanly. He doesn't try to take out the cheap hits. He's gonna hit on occasion, and especially now, I would think because it's the cup that he's playing for. But at the same time, I don't see him doing what people are suggesting he's doing. That's ridiculous.
right, and just I mean, just kind of closing up on this article from Dunlop, to make an assumption of motive without taking into consideration somebody's history is flat out wrong. It's horrible journalism, and to have this fly by your press editor is just amazing. I don't know what it is in that town and why they sip the Kool-Aid so much, but you know what? I mean, Rob Rossi writes this kind of stuff all the time.
But
The Pittsburgh Tribune loves to write this kind of stuff all the time. You know what? So if it gets them ratings, then I guess that's what you got to do in that town to get
yeah,
ratings.
I think more than anything, Landy, it's they got Crosby in a draft lottery. I mean, one ping pong ball difference in Crosby's an Anaheim Duck, um, which is pretty scary to think of that. Um, they were fortunate. I mean, even with Crosby, they found a way to deal with the state of Pennsylvania to keep their team, which by all means, kudos to them because I'm not sure how the Kansas City Penguins would work out essentially. So, I just think of it as a of there's been fortunate, and when you get a generational franchise changer, and it's just you get the notoriety, you get the love, you get the kudos, and sometimes maybe it gets to you a little bit too much. Um, where you get all the notoriety and you're used to it. Um,
Yeah,
and,
no, I
and,
mean,
and, and that's where I talked about earlier in the previous show, earlier this week. You have the calls that can go your way. You can have, how people, how you can get away with calls or not get calls. Um, the notoriety, because you have a mega star, kind of breaks everything down. I mean, you're in the NBC division and constantly focused on them all the time.
Yeah.
So I think that plays a part of it, and I think that's where the media goes. Where, well, woe is me, or oh, look what happened, So I wouldn't be surprised if Pittsburgh gets a good amount of advantages on the power play tonight.
Yeah, and just quickly wrapping this up, Pierre LeBrun actually joined Colin Dunlop this morning and talked a little bit about Marlowe's rep, and Pierre set him straight. He's like, "Look, this guy has never heard a fly. He does not have any kind of a rap sheet. That was not a suspendable hit. I don't know why there's such a conversation about it. It's done and over with." And so I love that Pierre just kind of comes on and just talks about it. And he also says some straight. He's like, look, this is going to be a tough series. The Penguins aren't just going to walk all over the Sharks. And so it was refreshing to hear Pierre come to bat for the Sharks. And LeBron always does. I mean, he's always been really good to us as far as media coverage and things like that. So, I mean, between the pantheon of great media people, LeBron and uh, Bob McKenzie are the two guys that I look to, for really good creative content. The up and comers of Wyshynski and Merrick also are awesome to hear because they give a fresh perspective to the game, and it's not always the same stale, oh, we played the game so this is how it is kind of narrative. So there's definitely some great new media people and definitely some great old guard in the media still. To which we have some audio from Jeff Merrick, who was kind enough to grace us with his presence on the podcast this morning. Ian Reed had a great set of questions regarding the Sharks system and prospects. Eric came in with some great questions regarding the series and what's he thinking about where the Sharks are at, where the Penguins are at. And so once Eric gets this all lined up, we will send it to that.
Yeah,
Eric?
we'll try to do this the old-fashioned way, folks. We got to kind of put the mic close to it and let it rain. But this goes on for a little bit, and of course, you can always check back with it on pucknology.net when it's on post. But here's earlier today with myself and Ian, with Jeff Merrick, and a special guest from Ian's one of Ian's little kids. So we'll get right into it. We'll talk about the Sharks and Penguins. What's your take so far? It's just one game, but what did you see from the Sharks so far in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final?
A bad first period, but then everything after that leads me to believe this is going to be a long series, and there's going to be a lot of momentum changes and a lot of lead changes. And I hate people that say, "Oh, the series is going to go 7." Usually, when I hear that, that means they don't know what's going to happen. And in this situation, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think this thing's going 7. Like, this one's going to be a nice long series, and if we have 6 more, like we just had in Game 1, then sign me up, because it's going to be played at a really incredible pace. I think San Jose still has a better pace they can play at. But if you remove that first period, this is a hell of a series. And I don't expect the San Jose Sharks to play like they did the first period of Game 1. So this one could be a great one here, boys.
Definitely. It's almost like Game 7 could probably go into multiple overtimes too, which will be great for the game, but for us Sharks fans, we'll be needing oxygen tanks. Defibrillators. Yes. With Matt Nieto coming into the lineup, that adds a little more speed to the game. Does it help or hinder to have that on a fourth line?
Oh, no. Fourth line now is asked to do a lot of other different things. And the one thing that we've seen about the Pittsburgh Penguins too is they roll 4 lines that all have speed. Like, every single line with the Pittsburgh Penguins moves their feet. So I don't think including someone who can move their feet on a fourth line is is anything that it's frivolous and it's not gonna help at all. I think when you play against the Pittsburgh Penguins, you need to play at their tempo, because the one thing the Penguins do is they grab you and they drag you to deep water fast. Like, they play at a pace that forces you to keep up, and the moment you wilt a little bit, that's when the Pittsburgh Penguins have you. So I think you bring in Speedy Matt Nieto, no matter where you put him, first line, second, third, or fourth line, it's going to certainly help.
Go ahead, Ian, with your questions regarding the Master
Sure. Don't mind the little one behind here.
Not a problem.
Jeff, I'm a huge fan of everything you do, but something we're kindred spirits on is our love of junior hockey. So I got a couple of junior hockey questions for you.
Hang on. I'm going to ask you one first.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're a San Jose Sharks fan, right?
I am.
Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds fan?
Correct.
So how much does it suck to see Matt Murray do this to your team?
Well, I'm hoping it's not fun, but I'm hoping that Joe Thornton will counterbalance the match.
There you go.
Yes. Okay, great pull. You pulled yourself out of that one, Ian. Okay, go ahead.
First, I want to ask you about Timo Meier. How excited should Sharks fans be about this guy? I know when he was drafted, a lot of guys were like, maybe Rantanen, maybe Barzal instead, but how excited should we be about him?
Big, strong, physical, can score. Was an all-star at the Memorial Cup. He had a great series against Drummondville, sort of tailed off a little bit until the team got to the President's Cup final, the Rwanda Huskies. This guy looks like he's pro-ready. He's pro-polished. This guy will be turning pro next year. And I said it throughout the entire tournament, San Jose Sharks are into the Stanley Cup final, and they still have this guy coming. Big, strong, can score. If I'm a Sharks fan, I'm really excited about Timo Meier.
Awesome. Also, just from the Memorial Cup too, which I watched the whole thing, and again, thanks for the coverage. It's awesome that you guys do.
Very nice, very nice.
Fun. Thanks, man.
What about Adam Haluka? Because this is a guy who gets drafted in his second draft year. He didn't get drafted in his initial draft year. Gets drafted in his second. Didn't think much of the pick at the time, and then he starts in the Barracuda, goes back to I want to say Seattle?
Spokane.
Spokane, right. He goes back to Spokane and then gets traded to Red Deer and he had such a great series. I mean, those two games with the Rebels and the Huskies, those were just great games. What do you think of Adam Haluka?
He's a good player. The bailiwick is the shot. Like that's what you're going to notice first about Adam Haluka. He was brought in to score goals, and he did. They put him on an interesting line as well. He played with Luke Philp. There's another trade who came in from Cunha, and Jake DeBrusk, who's a first-round draft pick of the Boston Bruins. He comes in from Swift Current. So I always find it interesting when players who come from three separate places get placed on a line and find instant chemistry, because it's not as if they played, their bantam years together or,
right.
much junior hockey together. And it seemed as if right away when you put Philp, DeBrusk, and Haluka together, it just clicked. And at times that was Brent Sutter's best line. There were a couple of times where I saw Haluka where, he turned up the opportunity to take a shot, deferring to somewhere else, and you're seeing yourself, Haluka's got to have that shot. Haluka's got to have that shot. And if you look at, that first game against the London Knights, the Red Deer Rebels, they handled the London Knights in that first 10 minutes. And if Haluka scores on that first shot and doesn't hit the crossbar, it's a much different game and maybe a much different tournament. So, this guy's going to play pro hockey. It's not going to be the NHL right away. He's still some seasoning to do in the American Hockey League, but he's another outstanding prospect for the San Jose Sharks.
Another question, just like something that I need to, like a guilty question. I started to care about. Is that London team the best London team ever?
Oh, let's see. I mean, the other one you compare it to is 2005, and they had that humongous winning streak, and they won the Memorial Cup against Sidney Crosby's Rimouski squad. That team had Corey Perry and Dave Boland and Danny Savret and Adam Dennis and Dan Girardi and Robbie Shrimp, and I go right down the line. I know, it's just a murderer's row of players on that team. So that was an outstanding squad. But I think that if you look at 17 games in a row in the playoffs, the only games they lost were in the first two. One in the opening round, 2 games against Young Sound Attack. They went through Kitchener. That's a top 10 CHL team. The Otters went through a top 10 team. Niagara, who knocked off Kingston, they were on fire, and then swept the tournament, and then beat the Huskies. I'd probably say, we'll see what happens to these guys as pros, but just as a junior hockey team, 17 wins in a row in the playoffs.
Unreal.
Yeah, I'll say that's the best London time.
Yes.
one last question for me. Of all the guys that are coming up from junior, you got the Sharks. You've got guys like Rourke Chartier and Kevin LeBlanc probably going pro next year. Any dark horses that you might see making the team other than obviously Timo Meier?
First of all, the one thing you have to consider too is not going to be a whole lot of room at the San Jose Sharks for guys to join this team. So it's a nice situation to have in that you can let players overripen a little bit with the Barracudas. But I really don't see much movement on the San Jose Sharks squad at all, to be honest with you. I think that the only player who's going to be able to walk in is maybe Timo Meier, and that's it.
Gotcha. I got one last question. I apologize.
Okay.
So now you got traded to Detroit. I was really, really high on this guy. Am I justifiably disappointed?
Who's this? Dylan Sadoway?
Dylan Sadoway, sorry, yes.
Yeah, nice player. He can score. To me, he sort of trends as your, third line winger who can chip in some offense. I like Sadoway. I love him as a junior hockey player. I didn't get to watch him a ton in Saginaw, but I watched him a lot in Barrie. It's a drag because he'll probably play in the NHL. He's not going to be a top six guy. He's a bottom six player, but he's a bottom six player with a lot of skill.
Gotcha. Alrighty, so that was, as I hear myself. Okay, that was Jeff Merrick, NHL and CHL on Sportsnet, giving his thoughts about the Sharks and the series so far, along with a look into the prospects, because less than a month away, we're going to have the NHL awards, we're going to have the NHL draft, and a month from today is free agent frenzy. So you got a lot going on top of Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final there. But a great insight, and again, we want to thank Jeff Merrick for joining us for a quick little intro like that. Landy.
Yeah, no, I mean it's I mean personally it's such a privilege to have him on the show. I've listened to Merrick versus Rosinski, I mean, since they started. It's probably been 2.5 years now. I mean, them and Dudes on Hockey, the other Sharks podcast that happens to have that happens to cover the Sharks as well. They're not our teal tinted glasses guys, but they're pretty good too. Those were the two real big hockey podcasts that I listened to for a long time, and I still do. So it just such a great get for the show, and like everybody's saying, Pucknology is growing up, and yeah, you know what, it's really cool to have some really good gets lately. We had Jamie Baker, of course. AJ and Chris did a bang up job with him. If you haven't seen it already, go check it out. It's a really good little video, little interview with him.
It's such a great video. It just says here from Bakes, and to kind of give you the insides of everything that's been in the broadcasting team is amazingly great. Yeah. Kudos to them for getting that. All of that you can find at pucknology.net on top of the YouTube channels and such. And also want to thank Teal Tinted Glasses for letting us use their SoundCloud to get the audio up as soon as we possibly can. Is AJ there?
Yeah, he is here. I think he just stepped out to go use the restroom real quick, but I think he'll be back.
No, of course.
So I think it's kind of interesting, but Kevin Kurz has a little Q&A session going right now on Facebook. So if anybody wants to get a question with Kurzy, I think he's answering till 4:00. Actually, it's 4:00 now, so he's not answering. But they had some good questions on there. Somebody was asking my question of whether or not you put Marleau back to center, and he was saying, that's a good point. It's something that he wouldn't be surprised to see Peter DeBoer do, and I think that's kind of what we talked about too. And there goes AJ. We talked a little bit about. He talked a little bit about just depends on the matchup during the game. It's going to be about how this game goes, and if there's going to be matchup problems, then it might be worthwhile to put Patty back in the middle. As we welcome AJ. AJ, do you have any thoughts on the center situation and whether or not to keep Patty on the line with Couture or bring him down to the third?
I'm, I'm going to defer to the knowledge of Pete DeBoer at this point. I'm still a little anxious about seeing Nieto replace Zubris. I would have thought it would have been Wingles, but as everybody else on the planet.
Right.
So, yeah. But if he puts Marlowe on the third line tonight, I mean, maybe that creates matchup problems for Pittsburgh that they don't want to see. So, we'll see what happens. I don't know. I'm just I'm in hyperventilate mode right now.
And we're not even a half hour away. I don't blame you one bit. I wanted to say, AJ and Chris, I know you're watching, but great job on the Jimmy Baker piece. Really great job all the way around. But as we kind of go into game two, and I want to show you guys a picture. We talked about before of how there's not supposed to, you're allowed one viewing party this round. Well, guess what, folks? That's they've set up a big screen outside Console Energy Center, and fans are lining up again. I guess they have a little jumbotron screen, kind of like where the Shark Tank has, where they would roll, things for events coming on, and they're lining up as we speak right now. This is from Puck Daddy himself, Greg Wyshynski. So I guess Mario's willing to take the fine tonight.
Either that or it's a gift from the Nothing But Crosby. I mean NBC gods, because hey, if San Jose did some stunt like that, we'd probably get fined up the wazoo.
Did they do that for game one as well?
Yes, they did.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
then,
they
yeah.
had people outside the arena to do that. I guess it would be like I said, the equivalent of having that little screen outside SAP Center being used.
Look,
Well,
it's Silicon Valley. We can get a freaking giant screen on the side of SAP Center. Not that hard.
well, then I'm just, then I'm
And-
just,
and-
I'm
and I
perplexed
also-
by the whole thing, and I'm ticked off, to be quite honest with you.
And I will suggest this as well. So if you're going to a viewing party, make sure you put all your televisions on. Make sure you have it on the right channel. So for tonight, it's NBCSN, and leave them on. That way, they have no excuse. You left your TV on for the ratings, and you went to the viewing party. I mean, no doubt about it.
Or if you want to spite NBC, you find an illegal stream of the CBC feed, which you don't have to deal with Doc Emmerich, and he scores. But
This still just cheeses me off to no end, of course. Because there is a rally at Chavez Park in downtown, and unfortunately, from what I know, there is no big screen or giant jumbotron set up out there, and that's a city rally versus a Sharks sanctioned rally, from the way I understand it.
Right.
But yeah, if Pittsburgh is going to, I would love to see. God, who was? There was some people on Twitter that had pointed that out. The whole thing about you get one event, the one event per round BS. I'd love to see somebody follow, whether it's Puck Daddy or whoever. I'd love to see somebody follow up on that and explain how Pittsburgh is getting away with this, or if they are in fact just saying, no, we're just going to eat the fine.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, if that is in fact the case, Mr. Plotner, you're on deck.
Let's do it. Let's make it happen for sure. All right, guys. So let's jump into game two. We have Nieto coming in for Zubris. Just some quick takes. I'll start with you, AJ.
Well, I just touched on it a minute ago, but I hope that speed, like I said, I hope the speed creates a matchup problem. Obviously, it's something you need to counterbalance it. Like I said, I was a little surprised. I would think that you'd keep Zubris in because, as Baker pointed out in our interview with him yesterday, the Sharks have a really good hockey IQ, and you would think Zubris is definitely one of those guys. DeBoer went out and wanted Wilson to get him specifically to help mentor the younger guys. So hopefully this is a move that pays off. And like you had mentioned, maybe we see Marlowe on that third line to create even more matchup problems and add a little more speed to that line. I don't know. There's a couple of guys that I'm really looking forward to watching tonight. I want to see, for those of you who don't know that are watching, Justin Braun's father-in-law passed away before Game 1, and obviously condolences to him and his family. But he had a very poor game on Game 1. The entire third line was very suspect for the Sharks for Game 1. So I look for bounce-back games from Braun and Tierney. And with Nieto coming in, hopefully just all that extra speed will just create havoc for the Penguins.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Just this tweet coming in from the NHL. Teams winning Game 2 have gone on to win the Stanley Cup 73.7% of the time since the final went to a best-of-7 format in 1939. So, go Sharks.
Well, there was also another tweet that came out, I don't know if it was last night or today, that said no team or no, I guess, metropolitan area has ever had an NBA team and NHL team win a title at in the same season. It's never happened before. So let's hopefully we make history this year.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Statistics can be skewed any way you want them to be, and these little factoids are all interesting and stuff. But look, I mean, this is going to be. I hope it doesn't go more than 6 games, because if it does go more than 6 games, I'm going to need a lot of something to keep me not nervous.
And if it goes 7. There's just no way Plotner doesn't suck up the fine for whatever a viewing party is going to cost.
I also look at it this way, and I said it with Merrick on the interview. It wouldn't surprise me, because that's so Sharks, that it goes 7 and it goes into sudden death overtime. And if that doesn't get ratings to keep NBC happy, nothing will.
Well, I want to see what the overnights are after today, because there's no basketball game on tonight. So I want to see how big the Bay Area rebounds from that really poor showing after kind of going head to head with Game 7. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting.
Stick tap to the. I shouldn't say stick tap. It should be more like stick on the head to a particular blogger. No, not someone that we've ever discussed on here before. I saw a blogger post something, I believe it was this morning, talking about the rating differential, the Warriors getting a 30 and the Sharks getting a 5, and it's like that's Game 7 versus Game 1, which Einstein, which you didn't even mention. It's like, yeah, of course basketball is going to get the bigger number. It's a more popular sport in the U.S., but just the way it was phrased was just kind of like, oh, the Warriors are just so superior, and it was just it was more circle jerking for the Warriors. And it's like I said, like we've said multiple times, hey Warriors, I'm happy for you, and we're going to let you finish, but right now this championship run is the best thing for the Bay right now.
Yeah.
Oh, precisely.
I mean, I don't know if you've been keeping up with the media at large, AJ, but what have you thought about these Pittsburgh media people? I don't know what acid-filled pond they're drinking from, to skew their brains, but I mean, do you have any thoughts on just how black and gold their sunglasses are?
I haven't followed really any of that, and you know what, these last 2 days, for the most part, well, I should say at least yesterday and today, the work has been so hectic, I just haven't really had any time to even get on there and take a look at some of this stuff. But I have had a couple of direct tweets from some Pittsburgh fans. One in particular, I think, called me Like the tweet was something along the lines of, "You, sir, are the biggest piss baby Sharks fan ever," or something along those lines. So, if anything, they're very classy. You know.
This just in, guys. I got a tweet from Sharks Ice. San Pedro Square Market has a viewing party for
Yep.
Game 2.
Yep.
And
That's
they
the
will
Sharks
have a
official viewing party.
Yep, and they will have a jumbotron out there. Looks like 98.5. K Fox is in the house, and you got some playoff towels. You got some other things out there too. So,
So does that count?
I don't think it counts because maybe it's not.
It's
in
not
the
on
arena.
site.
Maybe that's the case. Maybe it's because it's not in the arena. It doesn't count. I don't know. It remains to be seen. Something to ask our friends in the media.
Yeah, that's definitely something I would like to get to the bottom of it.
I mean, something like Stanley's is, or the Brit. You're still getting multiple TVs in.
Yeah.
With that, guys, we'll wrap it up. We will be back after the game for Pucknology After Dark, your interactive post-game Sharks show with everything breaking down. I think it's us three along with Gentry. I'm not sure, but nonetheless, we'll be here in some form tonight. And until after Game 2 and after a win, we hope, the first Sharks win in franchise history. Keep it real, keep it fresh, keep it real fresh, and AJ, wave that proud, buddy. This is playoff territory. Let's make this happen tonight. Back to you, Landy.
All right, we'll see you after Game 2. Hold on to your butts.